Good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Casham. This is the Committee on Agriculture. I'm the Chair of Agriculture. To my right is the Vice Chair, Amy Peruso, and this is a joint hearing with Committee on Economic Development. To my left is the Chair, Sean Quinlan, and then Vice Chair Daniel Holt. Today is Wednesday, March 16, 2022. It's 9:30 a.m. and we are in conference room 325 at the state capitol. First up, we have SB 2960 relating to food safety. First testifier, we have Department of Agriculture with comments.
Good morning, Chairs. I'm Morris Ata on behalf of the department. The department will stand on its testimony supporting the intent and offering comments, and we're available to answer any questions that you may have regarding our comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Hawaii Department of Agriculture again. Budget and Finance with comments. They're not here. We have Hawaii Research and Development. Research and Development, County of Hawaii in support. Next, we have Administrator Mahi Ku in support. Food Industry Association zooming in support. Are they on? Nope. Okay. Next, we have North Shore EVP in support.
Chair Hassan, Quinlan, Vice Chair Peruso, and Holt, thank you for hearing this bill. I'm Kevin Kelly. I'm the president of North Shore Economic Vitality Partnership, and we stand by our testimony on this bill, and I'm available for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Ulupono Initiative in support.
Good morning, Chair Hashem, Vice Chair Peruso, Chair Quinlan, Vice Chair Holt. Mike Komunikata on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. Here testifying on this measure in strong support of this. Continuing to support our small and medium-sized farmers with market access is going to be crucial to supporting our food security goals, and just really appreciate you folks hearing this measure and moving it forward. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Farm Bureau in support.
Let me go get my camera on and unmute myself.
I still can hear you though for some reason.
Morning, Chairs Hashem and Quinlan, Vice Chairs Peruso and Holt, members of the committees. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. You do have a written testimony in support. Just want to emphasize what the previous speaker said. This is for our small and medium-sized farmers. The cost of compliance can be a burden, but also it's not in our testimony, it's something to consider with all the efforts that the legislature has been putting towards farm to school. Our farmers may not have access to farm to school or farm to state or other institutions that require some sort of certification. So support and funding mechanisms like this to support the small and medium farmers will go a long way to, again, open up new markets and support our small farmers and help to grow our industry. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you very much. That is all the people that we have here to testify. We have several other testimonies, written testimonies in support. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Go ahead, you have the floor.
Thank you. Perhaps for EVP, or I don't know, the Department of Ag. In your testimony, it says that currently Hawaii Group GAP has 63% of all harmonized GAP certified farms and 23% of all GAP certified farms in the state. What is the aggregate number of farms, small farms, we're looking to have to get up to certification? And then what is the cost of your program?
Thank you. So the total number of certified farms in the state is around a third out of, I think, some 5,000 production farms. So we got a lot of work to do to be in compliance with the Food Safety Modernization Act. Our cost right now for providing the training and certification per year is $800 per farm, which is really pretty good nationally even. We participate in the National Community of Practice. We're among the least expensive states in the country. And even if a farm was to take on certification by themselves, learn how to do their own records, keep their own records, just the audit itself would probably be over $1,000. So it's a very economical program. And quite frankly, Group Gap, the way it's structured, the more farms that join the group, the cheaper it actually gets because there's less third-party audits, which are the really expensive ones. I get into detail on that, but in essence, is the third-party audits are required for the square root of the number of farms in the group. So if you had, for example, 10 farms in the group, you'd be required to do third-party audits on 4 of them, so 40%. But if you had 100 farms in the group, you'd only be required to do third-party audits on 10. And so that's where you really start realizing some cost savings. Over the past few years, we've been able to hit a real sweet spot. We've introduced some new technology for record keeping. So instead of lists and checklists and log sheets and things, we have a nice smartphone app with a company out of Salinas, California called Heavy Connect. They've been really good to us. They're providing us steep discounts to be able to use that software. And it really increases the efficiency of our staff being able to manage all the records for all the farms in the program. So we feel that right now we're at a really scalable level. I think with FDA starting inspections again for FSMA, we'll see more farms seeking out certification to maintain their place in the market. And as Brian mentioned too, some of the markets that the legislature has created for state agencies, I think that'll drive a lot of farmers to participate as well, seeing those new market opportunities. And that's really what a lot of our small and medium farms need.
Okay, I couldn't do the math really fast, but how many farms that are small farms are uncertified, or farms in the state are uncertified that need to be certified?
Probably a couple thousand at least.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Members, any other questions?
I have a quick question for Mr. Kelly. Sorry. So if you can remind the committee the base at which FSMA is required for small farmers. So what is the production level that they have to be reaching?
It's based on your gross income, and currently that's around $28,000 a year. Now, there's another exemption if you sell only directly to consumers. So if you're at a farmer's market, roadside stand, or CSA program, you would not be required to comply with FSMA. That doesn't mean, however, that you don't keep records and that it's not freewheeling. You still have some requirements under the law to keep records.
Okay, and last question. So I really appreciate the work that you've been doing out on the North Shore, and grateful for that. And I'm wondering, has most of your work been on Oahu, or have you also been bringing in farmers from the neighbor islands?
We currently have farms on 3 islands. I think about half, just under half are from Oahu. We have several on Kauai, and then we have 3 on the Big Island.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Seeing none. And anybody else questions? Economic development? No questions? Okay, seeing none, we're moving on. Next up, we have SB 2284. Relating to agriculture. First, we have Department of Agriculture with comments.
Good morning, chairs, committee members. Yes, the department will stand on its testimony, providing comments and supporting the intent. But basically, our testimony is just generally speaking that the devil is in the details, that in order to make this work. And so we just provided some helpful details.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Next, we have Brian Nielsen from DLNR zooming in with comments.
Aloha, chairs, committee members, Brian Nielsen, Division of Aquatic Resources, representing the department. We stand on our written testimony, appreciating the intent, but providing comments. Thank you.
Okay, that is all the people that we have registered to testify. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Okay, seeing none. Members, are there any questions? Okay, Vice Chair, go ahead.
I have a quick question for DLNR. So I just wanted to clarify, is this the work that Todd Lowe has been doing with DLNR around aquaculture? Is this related to the work? You seem to be.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this particular bill being related to the, collaborative, kind of working group that we've had with Department of Ag and Mr. Lowe. So yes, there is a lot of discussions going on around aquaculture and how we can support fish pond, locoia. But I'm not familiar if this particular bill is in relation to that, but maybe Mr. Lowe could address that.
Not seeing him, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. So it seems that one of the difficulties with this language is that DLNR is responsible for the permitting in ocean waters, and much of this aquaculture will occur in ocean waters. So it requires, if we're going to move forward with this aquaculture kind of development, that we're going to have to see a collaboration between DLNR and Department of Ag. And what I hear in Department of Ag's testimony is reluctance to get involved in the permitting of the ocean waters. So can you speak to how you can support that work?
Yeah, DLNR and Department of Ag collaborate already on, import pit permit reviews and permitting aquaculture. DLNR has the aquaculture facility license, so we collaborate with Department of Ag in issuing that license and making sure that the species are permitted appropriately with Department of Ag. So we do already collaborate on permitting associated with Department of Ag, but yeah, I can understand Department of Ag's reluctance to take on additional permitting in the ocean. It would be a capacity question, I'm assuming for them, but yeah, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I guess I can also understand their reluctance.
Mr. Actor, can you also respond to that question? Like how you foresee collaboration?
Our concern isn't necessarily about collaboration, because that does occur. It has more to do with expertise and jurisdiction authority. The open ocean activities, have a mix of, jurisdictional issues. For the state, DLNR handles it, but there are also federal issues involved that, really complicates it. So it's not the collaboration issue. It's really who has the authority and
knowledge
and the complexity of that.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, are there any other questions? Seeing none. Economic development, no questions. Seeing none, we will recess for decision making. Okay, we're back in. First up, back in for decision making on SB 2960. Chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. Any comments or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote. Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, that's right. Okay, yes, that's correct. Vice. Sure. Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, on SB 2960, Chair's recommended SD1. Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Representative Lowen. Excused. Representative Martin. Aye. Representative Mariyoshi is excused. Representative Todd.
Aye.
Representative Tokioka.
Aye.
Representative Matsumoto. Aye. Chair recommendation has been adopted.
ECD Committee, same recommendation. Members, questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair.
Senate Bill 2960 SD1, Chair's recommendation to pass unamended. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Belatti,
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi,
Aye.
Representative Onishi,
Aye.
Representative Sayama,
Aye.
Representative Takayama, Representative Okimoto is excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted. Thank you, members.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have SB 2284. Chair's recommendation is to pass this with an HD1. All we're going to do is put a zero language for appropriations, and we're going to have a blank fund amount. That's up to finance to figure out how much they want to fund it. And I want to continue on this conversation, so it goes to CPC after this. And that's it. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none. Vice Chair for the vote.
On SB 2284 SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the presence of Rep. Lowen, are there any reservations or no's? Seeing none, your recommendation has been adopted, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on.
ECD Committee, same recommendation. Members, questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, Vice Chair.
Senate Bill 2284, Senate Draft 2, Chair's recommendation to pass with amendments. Note and excuse absence of Representative Okimoto. Do we have any reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations for Representative Belatti? Any further reservations? Any no votes? Seeing none, all others voting aye. Chair, your recommendations adopted.
Thank you, members.
Okay, thank you very much, members. We are Okay, good morning, everybody. This is the Committee on Agriculture. I am Mark Hashem, the chair of the committee. To my right is the vice chair. And also in this room is Representative Lisa Martin and Lauren Matsumoto. Today is Wednesday, March 16, 2022. It's 10 a.m. and we are in conference room 325 at the state capitol. First up, we have SB 3096, making emergency appropriation to the Department of Education for Agriculture Innovation Center. First testifier we have is Department of Agriculture in support.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. Morris Ata on behalf of the department. The department will stand on its testimony and support and defers to the Department of Education
Okay,
regarding its impacts. Thank you.
thank you very much. Next person we have in-person testifier is Brian Miyamoto from Farm Bureau in support.
Thank you, Chair. The Hawaii Farm Bureau will stand on its written testimony in support.
Okay, on Zoom, we have Department of Education in support.
Hello, hello, Chair Hashem, Vice Chair Peruso, members of the committee, Randy Tanaka, Department of Education, Office of Facilities and Operations, testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. I'd like to make one clarification that it is not a building of a structure. The structure is already there. We're acquiring a building. It's a purpose-built building for ag. It's being acquired from a company that is exiting the state that did ag on the Kekaha Plain. The land sits on ADC land. So it is a very timely opportunity for the advancement of ag in the state of Hawaii, especially in the capacity building and workforce development. Aloha, ready for questions. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Waimea High School and a whole bunch of schools zooming in support. So that's all the members that we have registered to testify. We also have several other members or individuals that submitted written testimony in support. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Vice Chair, you have the floor.
I have a question for AS Tanaka, please.
Yes, Vice Chair Peruso.
Aloha, good morning.
Aloha.
So I am curious about the funds being appropriated here. And I'm wondering, we've talked many times about the BEX facility on Kauai, and I'm wondering, are these funds meant to purchase that facility?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and then my second question is, why would the state spend money to purchase our own building?
It's not our own building. It belongs to BEX. They purchased it and have used it, but it's not our building. It's their building sitting on ADC land.
So if I understand the license terms correctly, under which they operate, and they are ending their lease agreement, so they are terminating their lease. If I understand that, or they're terminating their license, if I understand that agreement correctly, any improvements they've made on state properties then devolve to the state. Is that correct?
Unless they continue doing some ag product there, that is my understanding. I would defer to ADC on the specific terms of that agreement. But I think two things we want to keep in mind: our ability, if there is a desire in the state to increase our capacity, not only in workforce, but in product. This facility gives us that opportunity to educate the next generation of farmers or those that may have interest in farms. So we could turnkey this, or our desire is to turnkey at the next semester for school. And we have already started that process. Waimea High School has a tremendous ag program that we could just, we intend to scale up. But I would defer
I
to.
don't
EDC.
dispute the value, and I have spoken with community members on Kauai who do support that kind of use for this facility. That's not the nature of my inquiry. I am concerned about wise use of state funds. So, okay, I think that unless Mr. Nakatani is on, and I don't see him, then that will be the end of my question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good question. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we are moving on. Next up, we have SB 2615, Department of Agriculture in support.
Morning, Chair. Department will stand on its testimony supporting the intent of this measure, and we're available for any questions. And we have some comments regarding the makeup of the board. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. That is all the people that we have registered to testify. We have several other people and organizations in support of this measure. Are there anybody else wishing to testify? Members, are there any questions to the Department of Agriculture? Seeing none?
I have a question for
Oh,
Robert.
sure, go ahead.
Aloha, Mr. Ata. So I understand the case for Molokai. I'm wondering about Lanai. Isn't it like one landowner?
Predominantly,
So
I think it's like 90 some odd % owned by a
Okay.
single landowner.
So we would be definitely giving one whole seat to one person.
It's possible to be viewed that way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, very good. Next up, no more questions? Seeing none, we're moving on. Next up, we have SB 3181 relating to agriculture. First up, we have Department of Ag. Morris?
Again, thank you, Chair, committee members. Again, the department will stand on its testimony supporting the intent and available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next. Next, we have the Attorney General coming in with comments.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair. Jody Yee with the Department of the Attorney Generals. Our testimony is that that when grants are enacted, they must have some standards in the statute, and so we ask or suggest that the committee consider adding in additional verbiage to put standards in the bill to address that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Hawaii Food Industry Association in support, zooming in. Nope, not on. Next, we have Ulupono in support in person.
Morning, Chair Hashem, Vice Chair Peruso, members of the committee, Mike Komunikata on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We'd like to stand on our testimony in strong support of this measure. During the interim, Ulupono did a lot of research with producers and various grant organizations across the state to try to find some of the biggest needs within the agricultural community, and really with an idea to try to help out producers with some of the federal offerings with federal programs. And through that research, we found that some of our producer needs that are not being addressed are kind of slipping through the cracks regarding eligibility, and sometimes it's just even just applying for a federal grant. So one of the needs that seem to find its way towards the top is transportation costs. I think we all know here within this committee and within the producer groups that transportation remains a very, very high cost for producers. With that production cost being sort of not addressed at, say, the federal level at all points, I think it's pertinent for the state to look into programs such as this to sort of help these producers with moving products really inter-island and to even consider even moving it as an export. So really appreciate this committee's hearing this measure and moving it forward. And you know, the producer groups are really going to be benefited by something like this. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Micah. Next up, we have Farm Bureau in support in person.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau supports this measure. We do have a couple of amendments that we'd like the committee to consider. In the bill, it actually provides this reimbursement program for agriculture commodities for consumption. We believe agriculture is more than just food. Food is absolutely important. But food, feed, fiber, fuel, floriculture, even hemp, which kind of comes in the middle. So we would ask that all agriculture be included. And also we're asking to provide some funding for the program or for a program coordinator within the Department of Agriculture. We believe this could be a great program, primarily to support our neighbor island farmers who are at a competitive disadvantage. Lots of times their imports will come to Honolulu. They need to ship it over to the neighbor island, produce there, and if they want to market here in Honolulu, they have to ship it back. They've got 2 transportation costs. Now, I understand this doesn't address the inputs, but we are asking that it is expanded to all of agriculture and that some funding is provided to the department to manage this program. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, oh, that's all the in-person testifiers that we have. We have received several other testimonies in support of this measure. Is there anybody wishing to testify on Zoom? Nope, seeing none. Members, are there any questions? Okay, Representative Martin, go ahead.
I have a question about, I'm not sure who wrote the bill, so I'm not sure who to ask it to. But about the way that qualified recipients are selected, and it's over $50,000 in production. Is that just to mean like real farmers as opposed to people? It seems like the ones who will need it the most are the small farmers. And by having it be over a certain amount, that means we could be giving $5,000 to large corporations and yet denying our small startup farmers who might be seeking a new market on Oahu for the first time. So I just wanted to understand the logic of that.
Somebody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, for that question. We did see that, and $50,000 is actually a pretty high threshold. I think majority of the farms are $25,000 or less out of our 7,300 farms. So the Farm Bureau would be supportive of lowering that threshold to again help the smaller farmers with the cost of transportation. We would even like to see a larger amount, over $5,000. We understand that there are fiscal concerns, but $50,000 may be a little bit higher. I think 80% of our farmers, nearly 80%, I think, according to the last census of ag, is under $50,000. So that the committee may want to consider lowering that threshold.
Okay, Vice Chair, go ahead.
I have a question for Mr. Atta for Department of Ag. So it looks to me that the language of the bill reads in a way that supports local food production, but not necessarily for local consumption. So it looks like it supports export production as well as food production that will contribute to our food sovereignty. So can you speak to that a little bit?
I'm not absolutely certain
Okay.
about,
So
the targeted, the intended targeting.
Mm.
What it appears with the 50,000 threshold that was inserted was that $50,000, I guess, criteria was based on discussions that have been going on with CTAR and DOA about in terms of those types of agricultural operations that can significantly move the percentage of GDP, the vacuum that was left by the hospitality industry during the pandemic, there were some requests to see how we could move the needle of getting more of the agriculture sector to cover some of that GDP. When asked about which sector of the ag community could make the most impact, the assessment was at that time, and based on those assumptions, that was those operations that exceeded the $50,000 threshold. There was an acknowledgement, as Farm Bureau noted, that most farms don't fall into that category. That threshold was based solely on the question, which part of the agricultural sector could significantly increase GDP and ramp up within a very short period of time. And so I think we have a mixture of discussions going on here, because that was actually based on how do we turn around this GDP problem that we have, and versus this, which the points made by Farm Bureau make perfect sense to me, that we should try and reach out to as many of the small farmers that are out there that need the same transportation benefit as everyone else. So that could be the source of the confusion.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Morris, you can stay there. Any other questions? Okay. My understanding, consumption doesn't mean actual food, right? It can be Christmas trees.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Technically, yeah, the term itself, consumption, means, like the word consumer, you don't necessarily have to eat to be a consumer. You can consume other goods. But I do understand, Farm Bureau's concerns that they want to make sure that, all sectors of the ag community are covered.
Okay. Do we need to change that term, or can we leave it in as it is?
I'm not absolutely certain. I mean, I agree with you. The term consumer generally would include all of that. But if the concern is because of the recent focus on food that everything else may be left out, then maybe it's worth assuring that won't happen by being very explicit about that, rather than relying on a generic definition.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to, Farm Bureau, do you want to address that, or?
Thank you, Chair. Again, our testimony reflects that our interpretation was that it was food consumption, but if the consumption is going to cover the sector, the agriculture sector, then again, we
Okay.
appreciate that.
All right, are you okay with, well, I'm gonna leave it then, basically.
Sure, can I just, this is recorded, right? We can
Yeah.
say that Chair Hashem said consumption
The
was.
intent is to, yes, for,
It'll be in the committee report.
okay.
Thank you, Chair. And based on the discussion, we may see testimony from maybe the Attorney General or others in the CPC in the next committee, or maybe it could be addressed.
Okay,
I would appreciate your consideration, Chair.
all right, thank you. Very good. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we are moving on. Next up. Next up, we have SB 2622. First, we have Department of Ag with comments. Am I under?
Thank you, Chair, committee members. This perfect segue from the previous bill. The department will stand on its testimony supporting the intent to boost the Molokai economy with biofuels agriculture. But we do have some concerns about our capacity to, carry out what may be expected of us under a program like this.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Hawaii Farm Bureau in support.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. The Hawaii Farm Bureau will stand on its written testimony in support.
Thank you. Next on Zoom, we have Pacific Biodiesel Technologies in support. Nope, not on. Okay, that is all the people that we have registered to testify. We also have written testimony from several other members and organizations in support. Is there anybody wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Seeing none, we are moving on. Next up, we have SB 2480 relating to Wahiwa irrigation system. Okay, first up, we have Department of Agriculture in opposition.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. The department will stand on its testimony. I guess it's in opposition. And will be available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have ADC. Yeah, ADC with in support. In
Yeah,
Zoom.
thank you, Chair. Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Jimmy, you got the floor.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So yes, the agribusiness is in strong support of this bill. I think this is a very important bill for at least 3 communities. It involves irrigation. It also involves DLNR recreation. Involves the city and county of Honolulu. So I think this is something that we should be addressing. It's been a while since health and safety. I mean, this problem is not going to go away. So I think we should all put our heads together and try to resolve this issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have DLNR with comments on Zoom. Okay, nobody's testifying. Next, we're moving on to Ulupono in support.
Good morning again, Chair Hashem, Vice Chair Peruso, and members of the committee. Mike Komunikata on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. We'll stand on our testimony in support of this measure. Very, very important that we continue to protect our water resources here within the state. I think when we walk away from an irrigation system or any type of water resource, the state finds itself in a tough pickle, really, where we look at providing more access to water for new producers or new farmers to increase our production, but there's no water resource. And so we turn back to these systems that have been left on the side, and we find ourselves having to invest billions of dollars in order to actually get things up and running again. So it's really important for us to maintain our water systems and look at, taking on new systems that may fall into other hands and honestly might turn into other use. So this Wahiwa irrigation system is very critical for that community and a lot of great producers within that Central Plain and into the North Shore area. Would really appreciate if you folks can move this measure forward and really continue to support the state's efforts around climate change and adaptation. I think what we're seeing is there's a lot more issues that are occurring across the nation, across the state. I mean, we're seeing it as well, where our food production and our agriculture production is affected by these natural occurrences. And this is through things other than, say, the pandemic or hurricanes, but also drought. And that shows us that we need to really maintain our water systems to have that consistent resources for water. Without water, there is no agriculture. I can't say that more importantly. Without water, there is no agriculture. So we really need to look into these systems and these opportunities to really support agriculture with irrigation. I want to also mention that there's a lot of other great projects that are included within the executive budget in the CIP package to really maintain our water systems across the state. Again, the Department of Ag does a great job of putting together an ag water use development plan to also show the need for maintaining water systems across the state, both public and private. So again, there's a lot of commitment here within the state to really protect and preserve our water systems, and we should look to expand that if we're really serious about expanding our production here within the state. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have Hawaii Farm Bureau in support.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We support this measure. I think the previous speaker articulated very well the importance of water for agriculture. He's absolutely right. No water, no ag. One of our concerns with this particular irrigation system is if there is another buyer that does not have the interests of the farming community, will they stop delivering water to the farmers? Will it increase the price of the water to the farmers? So again, we are very supportive of the state purchasing the system to ensure not just the safety of those downstream, but also of the viability of the farmers. And if you look at our testimony, we list some of the crops that are currently grown off of this system. So thank you for this opportunity to testify. And we ask for your support for this measure.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have Dole Foods Hawaii in support. Zooming in.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, go ahead. You have the floor.
Hi, Chair Hashem and Vice Chair Pruso and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing us to testify. I've submitted written testimony and I won't read it all to you, but just briefly, I want to remind everybody that Dole owns most of this system. We co-own it with Sustainable Hawaii, and the bill should be addressing the Sustainable Hawaii portion as well. And Dole is looking to sell the system to the state of Hawaii and or gift it to the state of Hawaii if the state accepts the repair upgrade, mandated upgrades that dam safety is asking for. The system is essential to agriculture on Central Oahu and North Oahu. The cost of upgrading it is just about the same cost to put Dole out of business in Hawaii. So we can't afford to be managing this forever, and it's the perfect opportunity for the state to take it over. It will add to the agricultural economy, it'll add to the recreational economy, and it potentially could add to your energy economy if the state wanted to pursue the hydroelectric opportunities and or water purification opportunities for potable water. So thank you for letting us testify, and we really hope that this can go through. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I'm available for questions if you need.
Okay, thank you very much. That is all the people that we have registered to testify. Is there anybody else wishing to testify?
Excuse me, Chair. Excuse me,
Okay.
Chair. Russell Tsuji for DLNR. I apologize. We have various staff members here available for any questions the committee may have. We'll stand on our testimony as submitted. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to testify? See none, we have, see none, nobody else. Members, are there any questions? No questions over there? Representative Martin?
I have a question for the DOA. What are the implications of, like the cost implications of receiving it as a gift and then having responsibility for the upgrades versus buying it and not inheriting any previous fines or liability or whatever?
Could you repeat what?
I understand that Dole is willing to gift this property to the state if they don't have to do like the safety upgrades, et cetera. But what are the relative costs?
Yeah, I think you're talking about I guess the consequences of the impacts of if Dole is successful in gifting or transferring the property to the state. What happens to all the outstanding liabilities regarding the dam safety issues and all that? Before I get into that, I wanted to correct my prior statement because I was a bit startled when the chair had mentioned that our testimony was in opposition, but I recall it as actually supporting the intent, but having strong concerns. And so I was, so it's not in opposition, but supporting the intent and having strong concerns. But in terms of the impact, I'm not sure that I am qualified or should talk about that part of it because that is the dam safety enforcement issue in terms of the liabilities associated with the structure. I do know that, that was part of the concerns that we had expressed. And that our main concern was that this water system is a very complex system that involves, a very complex myriad of public uses, needs, and priorities. And, definitely ag is an important one, but there are other very important ones that are involved in this situation as well. And I think, the representative from Dole, pointed out, some of the potential uses like hydropower or whatever that could be, incorporated into this mix. The advocates for ag are absolutely correct. Water is critical for ag, and we do have to find some kind of solution. But our position has always been that all the players who have some kind of interest or critical need should be at the table talking about it. That's basically where we are. And we were concerned about the imposition of the repair of the structure, which we could coordinate with the LNR on. But we also noted that there are no ongoing operational funds included in the package. And maintaining and operating a dam and spillway, once having fixed it, is still going to be a very costly proposition. And so that was a concern that we had raised in our testimony. So that was our position, not that we were opposing this bill. Thank you.
Sorry, that's my fault. Two negatives, I thought it was a positive, maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair.
Did Mr. Green sign up to testify? Is he here? Okay, then I would like to speak with Mr. Nakatani, if I could ask you a couple questions.
Yes.
Good morning. I'm assuming that you were involved in this process of negotiation. Is that correct?
Yes. I think, just to be clear, I think that when we had this bill first came out, my recommendation was that, and working with Dole and all the parties, is that the governor needs to get involved. And this is not just a simple one agency, you do it all. And so I think as the bill is crafted, there's room for negotiations and for the, it's a policy call really, but it's a very important part of, this bill is very important that we pass it on so we can, continue to make corrections of whatever we need to do. But, I don't think we can turn our back onto the communities at this point, given that DLNR has set the record, for fines and everything on the dam, which is the correct thing to do, because I think that, we need to address the, health and safety issue. That's priority. Irrigation is priority, but I think that when you take health and safety, that becomes a number one priority. So I think that was the biggest concern for us now.
Okay, but the reason I asked that question is it seems as though a key player was left out of the negotiation process. Looking at testimony from Mr. Green of Sustainable Hawaii, and I'll just read you an excerpt. Although this measure authorizes the governor's office to negotiate with the Dole Food Company, Sustainable Hawaii LLC was never contacted during the process. We own multiple parcels that will be affected by SB 2480, including the Wahiawa Dam and the adjacent parcels. The fact that I was not contacted nor consulted during the negotiation process tells me there are different standards for Dole Food Company and Sustainable Hawaii. He goes on to identify some really substantive problems with the ways in which the TMKs that are identified in the bill are inaccurate and inadequate. If the state thinks that we're buying the dam and the spillway, this bill doesn't do that. So I think they're so fundamental that I'm, and the fact that this bill went through the entire Senate process, and I had to call Mr. Green for him to even be aware this bill was coming over to the House. So this is his first opportunity to weigh in. He is the partner in this project, and there are major problems. So I am wondering why it is that you folks never engaged him in the process.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the question would be. Who did we not
I'm asking,
engage?
yeah, Mr. Green, Sustainable Hawaii, the other landowner.
That's correct. I mean, I think that and if you look at the bill, when the bill first came out, the bill was to purchase the property, and and as Mr. Nellis testified that Dole was willing to gift the property to us. The negotiations with Mr. Green, yes, it was not there, and the puzzling question was that in the issue of fines and everything, why wasn't Mr. Green included into this, I guess, litigation or fines that imposed on Dole? That's a question I don't know. With respect to Mr. Green getting involved, I mean, I think that the first question was to see if the state could come up with a solution to help the committee, health and safety and all of those things first. And I think, there's enough room in the bill that says that with the governors, you can negotiate with Mr. Green and everything else like that. The parties, it doesn't mention Mr. Green specifically, but it talks about the spillway. So I think that's enough to start the conversation.
Okay, we're at the point where the bill has progressed to a different chamber. So we're well through the process, and this is the first time this conversation is happening so I'm deeply concerned. And then Chair, if I can ask Mr. Nellis a question. So
This is Mr. Nellis. Hello, Vice Chair, can you hear me?
Is Mr. Nellis available?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hi, Dan. Nice to
Hi.
see you.
Good. Yeah, can I, before you even ask your next question, if you will, let me just give the slightest history of how this bill started.
Okay.
Dole can only offer to gift and or sell the portion that Dole owns. Dole has a license lease agreement with Sustainable Hawaii. And our intention was to allow the state in full discussions with Howard in the past, not current immediate discussions, which I will be having more talks with him. But we were going to transfer it with the license. So the state would now be under license to Sustainable Hawaii and would be paying the rent that Dole currently pays for the portions, multiple TMKs that Howard is defining for you, which in particular the spillway. So the state could buy and or accept transfer from Dole of Dole's portion. They could be paying rent to Sustainable while they enter into a negotiation with Sustainable to purchase his portion. This is how originally this got started. And I think that I agree with you. There should have been more of a reach out to Howard and allow this bill to be crafted to include the purchase of his. So the amendments that came along later in the Senate did include a funding for purchase for Sustainable Hawaii. Howard's testimony points out that it didn't identify the TMKs properly. And I'm quite certain Howard's right, because he is very good at what he does. And I want to make sure that the committee understands that there is no negative strife between Dole and Sustainable Hawaii. We have been partners and working together on this ever since Sustainable Hawaii purchased those parcels from the Galbraith estate. So I just want to make sure we present that we are working together.
No, and I am not really concerned about your relationship with Sustainable Hawaii. I'm concerned about the state's interest. So if the state thinks they're purchasing the dam and all of the property necessary to operate the dam, we're not with this bill. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying this is the time when you could amend this bill to include the proper TMKs as per request from Howard. And let's move this forward, because we do not want to let technicalities of this kind put a brake on us. We can get down to the nitty gritty and fix it. and
I
move
agree,
forward.
and
And-
I do think the state should own the dam. That is very important, and I agree with the purpose and the intent. I
Thank
am
you.
just concerned about the process and the current outcomes. So my question for you actually is more about maintenance. So
Okay,
I understand that the repair cost is in the ballpark of 21 million.
yes, the
I'm
upgrade, not repair cost, upgrade,
Okay, upgrade.
yes.
That's not lowering the spillway, is it?
It could involve lowering the spillway, or it could involve making the spillway larger and having what they call gates, which allow you to have high level of lake, and then you open gates and lower it very rapidly if you have a event coming.
Okay.
So it's a
Okay.
combination of those two things.
Okay,
But
so that's,
the cost of 20 million is probably not including the gates.
oh, okay.
We don't know that yet.
Yeah.
All the cost design
it
is
wouldn't be to
is being
repair
worked
the
on.
So it doesn't include repair of the gates.
No, not repair of the gates. That's not what I meant. A gated spillway. A gated
Okay.
spillway is what I meant.
Okay, so my question was about maintenance.
Mhm.
The Department of Agriculture spoke a little bit about those costs and how operational costs are not included in this legislation. What is your current operational cost?
I have submitted our operational costs to the different Senate folks during that session and to the ADC. And basically we are at break even because we do charge for delivery of water. The 1 year, I gave them a 5-year reach back. The 1 year where we were about 150,000 in the hole, and that's because we spent 100,000 on a design that was rejected by the state of Hawaii, and we ended up eating a $20,000 fine at that time because they didn't accept our design, which meant we were then missing a deadline for an acceptable design.
Okay.
Now
so if
we
you
are
normally-
working on new designs.
If you're normally break even, what is that number?
Break even is less than 100,000 in margin. Some years less than 100,000 in negative, but that 1 year we were about 140 or 160,000 negative when we had the extra costs of upgrade designs and fines from the state of Hawaii.
Yeah, so I think I might not be asking this question clearly, but
Mhm.
I'm asking you, and maybe this is what you're telling me, and I'm not hearing you say that, but I'm asking you how much it costs Dole, and I'm not asking you to kind of balance it with how much you receive in income from charging for
Oh,
water
sure,
delivery.
sure,
How much does
sure,
it cost
sure.
you
So
to
it
operate the dam?
It probably and because I don't have the numbers in front of me, I'm going to do this in my head. We receive income of approximately 800,000, 500,000, which is coming from Schofield Barracks wastewater treatment, and 300,000 approximately from sale of water. And it costs us about that same amount during the year. We are spending to a third party operator somewhere in the range of 400,000, 450,000 a year. And I don't know the exact number. And of course, it's not really good to put that out because we do have that bidding procedure for that. So there's the third party operator that we pay, and then we pay other constant upgrades. And I don't count the fines and the DLNR upgrade designs as part of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
But I can submit to you, Vice Chair, the same spreadsheet that I've shared with the Senate folks who requested it.
Yes, please. If you don't have my email address, I'll reach out to you after the session.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one question for you, Dole, for Dole.
Yes, sir.
The fines to upgrade the spillway is roughly $20 million, correct?
Not the fine, that is the cost
I mean,
of upgrading.
the cost
Yes,
to repair. is
to
roughly
upgrade,
$20
yes,
million.
sir.
But you
Yes, sir.
guys actually don't own the dam. That's owned by Howard Green, right?
The spillway section is owned by Sustainable Hawaii and we lease it. And under our lease, we are responsible for keeping it up to every mandated level that the government determines it needs to be at. So the onus is on us as the leaseholder, as opposed to being on Sustainable Hawaii as the landowner
I see.
of that section.
When does that lease expire?
The lease is on a year to year now. It expired several years ago.
Okay.
But we continue. And
Okay. Thank you very much. Members, any other questions? See none. We are moving on.
Thank you.
Next up, we have HSB 346. We have a lot of people hearing. First up, we have Department of Agriculture in opposition. Did I get it correct this time?
Yes. Thank you, Chair, committee members. Yes, so we note that this appears to be a resurrection of the previous bill that was introduced, and it contains some of the original terms that we had previously, testified about. And just to highlight what those were, basically the ambiguity of the term, cruelty as a standard for determining violations was, ambiguous, and so we were recommending that we resort to a one standard that is out there that seems appropriate, which would be the policies and guidelines of the American Veterinary Medical Association for treatment of animals, rather than a kind of a vague, cruelty term that isn't clearly defined. The other comment that we had was the original bill had a threshold in terms of the impact on the industry of 10,000 layers, and I think in the course of the evolution of the more recent bills, that threshold was raised because of the notion that the 10,000 threshold would affect most. I don't have the specific statistics, but quite a bit of the industry. And the reason for increasing it to 75,000, I believe, was the most recent discussions, was so that the fiscal impacts would really apply only to those operations that could afford to do so. Because otherwise, the fiscal impacts on smaller operations would just basically make it impractical or uneconomical for them to continue operating. So those are, our strongest concerns as to why we had raised our objections to the bill.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I am going to move on with in-person testimony. We have a lot of people registered for Zoom, so I'm going to start off with in-person. Next up, we have Hawaii Farm Bureau in opposition.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We'll stand on our testimony, respectfully opposing this measure. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have Hawaii Animal Rights Hawaii. I don't see anybody here. Next, we're moving on to Zoom. So we don't have a specific time limit per se, but we have your testimony, and I just ask that you sum up your testimony, because we do have a floor session later on today and we need to get to that. So first up, with that said, we are moving on our Zoom testimony. Josh with Humane Society of the United States in support.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'll be less than 2 minutes, I promise. We are testifying in favor of this legislation with the amendment potentially moving the timeframe to January 1st, 2025, and enlarging the family farm exemption to 75,000 chickens. Now, imagine a chicken, placing her in a cage about the size of your home microwave, a barren wire cage, and then placing another 4 chickens inside this cage. our chicken is unable to spread her wings. She's less space than a sheet of paper to live on for her entire life. But the good news is that the future is cage-free, and that every major buyer and seller of eggs in Hawaii and across the country is committed to switch to cage-free eggs, whether it's McDonald's, Burger King, Denny's, IHOP, Walmart, Foodland, Safeway, including also Hawaiian Airlines that has filed testimony in favor of this legislation. Regarding laws across the country, blue states, purple states, and red states have passed similar laws, including California, Oregon, Washington, Michigan, Colorado, Nevada, Utah, and Massachusetts. You know, to be very specific about this piece of legislation, the actual standards are as specific as it comes. In fact, it's the egg industry's own cage-free guidelines that's being asked for in this legislation. So the actual guidelines are from the egg industry itself, as specific as ever been written in the United States and across the world. In fact, there's so much momentum that the egg industry feels that the future is cage-free that the USDA even states that in a few years, 75% of chickens in the egg industry will be cage-free. So thank you so much, Chair, Vice Chair, for this opportunity. Appreciate the time talking about this bill.
Okay, next up we have Compassion in World Farming in Support on Zoom.
Yes.
Ali?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Compassion in World Farming and our Hawaiian supporters support SB 346 with the amendment Senator Gabbard made to a virtually identical bill, SB 2977, at the Senate AN hearing on February 14th of this year, which moved the effective date to January 1st, 2025, and farm exemption to 75,000 hens. As you may know, the nearly identical bill has already passed 3 Senate committees with overwhelming support this session. 9 states have already passed bans on the production and/or sale of eggs from hens in caged systems. And now Hawaii has an opportunity to continue to drive forward a kinder and more sustainable food system. First, I want to reiterate that this bill ensures baseline welfare standards for hens. We aren't talking anything drastic here. We would never dream of keeping a dog or cat in a cage so small they couldn't stretch or turn around for their entire life, right? This bill simply ensures these animals have room to walk and fly and have basic items to express natural behaviors. Just like you might give a cat a scratching post and a cat tower to jump on, this bill just requires they have things like dust bathing areas and perches. Hens in cages suffer physical and psychological distress, and about 74% of hens raised in battery cages die of fatty liver hemorrhagic syndrome, as compared to only 0 to 5% of hens in cage-free systems. So this rule would just give hens a chance at a life worth living. Major retailers like Walmart, Target, Aldi, and Kroger have pledged to shift to 100% cage-free supply because of consumer demand and for corporate social responsibility. The proportion of cage-free hens, as Josh was talking about earlier, has more than tripled in the US since 2016, up to over 1/3 of all hens. And that number is only expected to increase as farmers, retailers, and consumers seek to support a better food system. We hope that you will join us in building that better food system as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have, hold on here, I'm trying to find my place. Animal Equality, Sarah Hannikin. Before you start testifying, can you please state your name? Is she on?
Yep, I'm on.
Okay.
Thank you so much. My name is Sarah Hannikin, and I am a legal advocacy counsel for the nonprofit Animal Equality. I'm here today to testify on behalf of Animal Equality's Hawaii members to ask for your support of SB 346. I'm a former Hawaii resident myself, and that makes me all the more delighted to see the state take up this critical issue impacting hens in the egg industry. And hens raised for their eggs are arguably the most abused, have the highest rates of suffering without the types of legal protections that are being proposed here. Most of the eggs currently sold in Hawaii come from hens that suffer this way in industrial factory farms, confined in extremely small barren wire cages. As some of the individuals have already testified, this bill would provide just very, very minimum welfare environmental enhancements that they need for just very basic physical and psychological well-being. To deny them this is unthinkable. And yet that is, those conditions are what the majority of hens that provide eggs to Hawaii residents currently live in. So this is why Hawaii really must join the growing contingent of US states that are banning the sale of eggs from caged hens. There are 9 so far, and we know that number is going to steadily grow. To reiterate the point Mr. Bulk made in his testimony, and with all due respect to the spokesperson from the Department of Agriculture, the standards for what constitutes cruel treatment are very, very clearly defined in this bill. That is absolutely not a real concern, and we thank the drafters for that clarity. So thank you very much for considering my testimony, and I hope you will vote yes on the SB 346.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have Humane Society International, Sarah Shields.
Chair Hashem, members of the committee, I'm Dr. Sarah Shields. I'm an ethologist and animal behavior scientist. I studied at the University of California at Davis, and now I'm Director of Farm Animal Welfare Science at Humane Society International. In my role, I work with food corporations, academics, financial institutions, governments, and farmers all over the world, including engagement with our new cage-free farmers. Humane Society International strongly supports SB 346 with the amendments proposed by Senator Gabbard. I'll make just 3 short points to complement my written testimony. First, as already mentioned, animals have deeply ingrained biological drives to express certain types of natural behavior, and this is well documented in the scientific literature. As already mentioned, hens need a perch for roosting at night. They require a secluded nest box for egg laying and litter for foraging and dust bathing. So that's the value of cage-free production. It meets the scientifically documented behavioral needs of the hens. Second, as the science has advanced and producers have gained more experience with cage-free housing, the few remaining obstacles have been addressed. Hen health and productivity is good in these systems. They're working well and being successfully implemented around the country and around the world. And third, consumers have strong beliefs about animal welfare issues. People care about where their food comes from, and the way society views our relationship to animals and our responsibilities to them is only getting stronger. Cages are simply no longer considered an acceptable environment. So finally, our network at Humane Society International includes many successful cage-free producers, researchers, veterinarians, and specialists who can assist with the transition. Please call us to help with the details. We are eager to provide them. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee today.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have World Animal Protection US, Cameron Harsh.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity to testify. My name is Cameron Harsh. I am the Programs Director with World Animal Protection US. On behalf of our supporters in Hawaii and across the US, we endorse SB 346 with the amendment Senator Gabbard made to a virtually identical bill, SB 2977, at the Senate AEN hearing on February 14th, which moved the effective date to January 1st, 2025, and the farm exemption to 75,000 hens, as others have said as well. This bill is not only an opportunity to transition out of an outdated intensive confinement farming practice and dramatically improve the lives of egg-laying hens in Hawaii, but it will also mitigate the risk of disease and ill effects on human health, create a safer food supply for Hawaii's families, and promote market and regulatory certainty and consistency. People across the US are actively seeking out products that treat animals well and provide more humane living conditions. Our organization surveyed a sample of US shoppers, and 61% indicated their concern for animal welfare regularly comes to mind when deciding what products to buy. Fortunately, solutions to close confinement practices are available, and producers both in the US and globally have successfully implemented housing changes that allow for humane treatment of animals while maintaining or improving the economic sustainability of their business. World Animal Protection US respectfully urges this committee to vote yes on SB 346. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have Hawaii Egg Company, Iris, in opposition. She's not on. Nope. So that is all the registered groups that we have to testify. We have several more individuals in support and a few in opposition. Is there anybody else wishing to testify?
Chair Kiko McClellan here on Zoom.
Okay. All right, Kiko, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. Mahalo for this opportunity. Just first and foremost, thank you and your committee for taking this measure up after 4 years of communication with the department, egg producers, distributors, local consumer advocates, and our Kamaina communities who have made their demand for cage-free loud and clear through their decisions to buy cage-free and the demand from grocers and restaurants and airlines, and for those of us with school-aged kids, whom I'm sure you've been the target of criticism by our woke keiki who demand no less than cage-free these days for this conversation. I will point out the three very specific things. First and foremost, that a number of the organizations that have testified today are doing so on behalf of many tens of thousands of local community members here in Hawaii, whether it's ASPCA or HSUS or our veterinary associations. One of the commitments that we made early on was to promote positive communication on this issue, because we think that this is an important thing for Hawaii's farms and consumers. The second was that small farms are very important. And while Ms. Shimabukuro was not able to testify today, I think she was the previous testifier, we have communicated to her and other small farms that it is crucial to advocates for cage-free that a size standard be implemented that does protect small farms. And the Senate agreed with that and did amend a similar measure to increase the size standard to 75,000 egg-laying hens. And we urge you to take a close look at that language in the bill that did cross over, and in the suggested language that we have a number of times provided to the committee and in our testimony. Thirdly, and this is an important one, that since the exemption standard would change, if that's something that the committee and the chair sees fit, we would be very supportive of an accelerated date, and more importantly, support for local farmers. Should there be an opportunity to provide a matching grant for cage-free conversions, that would be both in the best interest of our birds and in the best interest of small farms. So with that, we stand on all of the testimony that our partners have provided in strong support of this measure and available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to testify?
Aloha, Chair. It's Susan Reed.
Okay, for HSUS?
Yes, I somehow got bumped in the lineup, but I just wanted
No,
to show.
Oh, no, because I called on HSUS and you already had one person coming. So I assumed that was. Go ahead.
You know, this will be quick. I'm just here on behalf of HSUS to support the Senate Bill of 346, echoing Keikoa's support and facts of how it's going to help our state and our community. I just want to thank you for your time and thank you for your consideration for this bill.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Anybody else wishing to testify? Seeing none. Members, are there any questions? Seeing none, we will recess. That's our last bill, right? We will recess for decision. We're gaveling back in for today's 10 o'clock agenda. We have 5 minutes to get through this. And first up, we have SB 3096. Chair's recommendation is to pass this with an HD1, just making technical amendments. I know some people have issues with this issue, and vote your conscience. Any vice chair for the vote?
Chair's recommendation on SB 3096 SD1 is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes no. Representative Lowen. Aye. Representative Martin. With reservations. Representative Mariyoshi.
Reservations.
Representative Todd.
Aye.
Representative Tokioka.
Aye.
Representative Matsumoto. Chair, your recommendation has been adopted.
Okay, thank you for letting it limp out of committee. Next up is SB 2615. The chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. Members, no questions, no concerns. Thank you. Vice Chair for the vote.
On SB 2615 SD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass unamended. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the presence of all members, are there any reservations or no's? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation has been adopted.
Okay, next up, we have 3181. Chair's recommendation is to pass this with an HD1. We're gonna put in the committee report for the next committee into looking into standards for the grant and for amendments to the bill. We're gonna delete the 50,000 threshold. We're gonna make it a ceiling of a blank amount instead of a floor. That's it. Any concerns or questions? See none. Vice Chair for the vote. Thank you.
On SB 3181 SD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting the presence of all committee members, are there any no's or reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation has been
Okay.
adopted.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have SB 2622. Chair's recommendation is to pass this with an HD1, making tech amendments, and we're gonna take out Molokai. It's just gonna be basically a biofuel pilot program for the state. And it's up to Department of Ag to decide where they want to put. Any concerns? No, thank you. Vice Chair for the vote.
Chair's recommendation on SB 2622 SD1 is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any no's or reservations? Seeing none, Chair, your recommendation has been adopted.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Next up, we have another controversial bill here. SB 2480. Chair's recommendation is to pass this unamended. I know the issues surrounding this. Vote your conscience, members. Vice Chair for the vote.
Chair's recommendation is
Unamended.
Chair's recommendation on SB 2480 SD2 is to pass unamended. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes no. Are there any other no's or reservations? Reservations for Rep. Martin and reservations for Representative Matsumoto. Any other no's or reservations?
Reservations.
Representative Mariyoshi.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it. Oh, okay. Thank you for letting it limp out of committee again. Next up, we have Senate Bill 346. Okay. So the chair's recommendation is where we're gonna take out all the cruelty to animals sections. What I'm basically gonna do is really simplify the bill. And we're gonna make it so that way, okay, the chair's intent is not to create duplicative regulation where the state has one regulation and the USDA has another. We're gonna adopt the USDA regulation and the egg industry is regulated by the USDA and we're gonna continue to let the egg industry be regulated by the USDA. With that said, the chair's recommendation is to make the United States Department of Agriculture certified cage-free grade mark or seal for all sales and egg products and shelled eggs within the state, beginning July 1st, 2027. So basically, the USDA has a grade standard already existing in place. So all eggs sold in Hawaii will need to get that certified cage-free eggs from USDA. We're going to make an exemption in the bill, and this is straight out of USDA's guidelines also. In Chapter 9, Section 146.22, we're going to take their threshold. We're going to add exemptions to this is commercial cage table egg laying premises with fewer than 75,000 birds are exempt from this provision. We're also, that's one. Next, we're going to add commercial cage-free table egg laying premises with fewer than 75,000 birds are exempt from this provision. We're also going to make retailers exempt from this provision. A business or owner operator who knowingly purchases or sells any egg products from fewer than 75,000 table egg laying flock, commercial table egg layer flock of less than 75,000 egg laying hens will be exempt from this position. So basically, you can sell, retailer can sell from a producer that has less than 75,000 egg laying hens. And we're also going to add in a matching grant program. So it's the matching grant program will be for people converting from cage to cage-free egg. From cage to cage-free eggs. We're going to put a sunset of 5 years. So July 1st, 2027 is a sunset for the matching grant program. Did I state when this gets in place? I believe I did. Right? Is there any questions or concerns? Oh, and we're going to make a sunset for this whole provision in July 1st, 2032. So this will force the legislature to relook at this issue in 10 years. Did I miss anything from there? Seeing none. Members, I understand this is a very controversial issue, and I say vote your conscience. Vice Chair for the vote.
On SB 346 SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any noes or reservations? Reservations for Matsumoto
Reservations.
and Representative Mariyoshi. Any other noes or reservations? Representative Todd. Chair, your recommendation has been adopted.
Okay, thank you very much, members. We are adjourned.